What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining the Glad's Horror Channel, the best horror channel here on YouTube. And today we are going to get right back into our history of horror, rounding out our 1930s, talking about some more key characters from that time frame. I'm really excited about it. Hope you are too. Let's get started. So as I stated previously, Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff pretty much dominated the 1930s, the entire decade, paired with Universal. Now that's only here in America. In 1932, The Vampire, a movie called Vampire, a German horror movie, came out. A lot of people say that Vampire is the best vampire movie ever made. I just recently watched it for the first time. I can't say that I agree. It's very good, but it's different. It's a little disjointed and kind of hard to really immerse myself in the same way that Dracula was a year prior, especially the same way the Spanish Dracula was in that same year. So, but still, it put German horror on the map and made it credible and proposed a legitimate contender to Dracula and Universal. Now, that didn't stop Universal, obviously, as I spoke previously about Frankenstein and the Mummy. But in 1933, there was another huge Universal horror movie, Claude Rains' The Invisible Man. Now, for those of you that don't know, you probably have seen The Invisible Man, the most recent one, starring Elizabeth Moss. This was based on the Claude Rains, the movie starring Claude Rains back in 1933. So, we all know now in our generation that Stephen King is pretty much the most prolific horror author to turn his books into movies. He wasn't the first. Edgar Allan Poe, the author of The Telltale Heart and the Raven, got both of those books into movies in 1934, The Telltale Heart, in 1935, The Raven, which also starred Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. In 1935, werewolves would burst onto the scene with The Werewolf of London. In 1936, Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber, which you may remember Johnny Depp playing him a few years prior. This was not the first movie of that. The original was in 1936. So Sweeney Todd was pretty much the end of the big horror movies that come out within that decade. So the 1930s is one of the most influential decades of all of horror cinema, because without Universal, we wouldn't have some of these amazing monsters. Without Bela Lugosi, we wouldn't have Dracula in the way that we know it today. Without Boris Karloff, we wouldn't have Frankenstein and have the legacy that Frankenstein created. Now, if you think about it, movies like Frankenstein and the character and the way that he moved influenced Jason and Michael Myers. You can tell a lot in their movements came from Frankenstein. So even in horror we're watching today, the legacy and the influence of Frankenstein is seen in some of our characters today. The same thing with Werewolf of London. With Werewolf of London, kind of set the blueprint. It wasn't the first werewolf movie, but it was one of the biggest prior to the 40s when Wolfman came out. It was the pretty much a blueprint for what it should be, and it was elevated when Wolfman came out in 1940s. But we'll talk about that another time. We just can't underestimate or understate how important the 30s were. The fact that Edgar Allan Poe was able to get his books into movies gave way for people like Stephen King, gave way for all other authors that are aspiring, including myself, to get their books made into a movie. So one of my favorite decades of all of horror is the 1930s. I hope you guys like this video. I enjoyed doing it. I cannot wait for the next one. We're going to go into the 40s and talk about the differences. There are some nuances and some evolution that happened in filming in the 40s versus filming in the 30s. There are some things that stayed the same. Universal didn't relinquish its stranglehold on American horror until the end of the 40s. But we'll talk about the next time. If it's your first time here, guys, leave a like. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. I talk all things horror, and I'll see you guys next time.